This is critical thinking in muscle physiology, and here are the questions. This is the first one, the second one, and here is the third one. Now let's look at the first one, where you have to identify the incorrect statement. And the first statement here is that creatine phosphate is a high energy molecule that is the first source used to generate ATP. This is a true statement because it is indeed a high energy molecule that is stored in the muscle fibers and is the first source used to generate ATP. In fact, the first 15 seconds or so of any activity will call upon creatine phosphate to be used to generate ATP. And then if the activity takes a little longer, say about 30 seconds or more, then you have anaerobic glycolysis. And if the activity takes even longer than that, then aerobic mechanisms are called into use. So therefore, the first source used to generate ATP in any activity is creatine phosphate. The second statement is the sarcolemma becomes permeable to sodium ions in the presence of acetylcholine. This is also true, and this has to do with the neuromuscular junction. So at the neuromuscular junction, if this is the axon terminal and then this is the motor end plate, you have these synaptic vesicles. So once these synaptic vesicles come and fuse with this axolemma here at the axon terminal, and they release the neurotransmitter, which is acetylcholine, into the synaptic cleft, that comes and binds to these receptors at the motor end plate. Now, once it binds to the receptors at the motor end plate, it makes this sarcolemma permeable to sodium, which is on the outside. So sodium will then flow in, and then depolarization will start, and then that wave will continue. So this is also a true statement. The third statement, which is that sodium ions must enter the axon terminal in order for the neurotransmitter to be released. Now this is false, because it's not sodium ions which have to enter the axon terminal, but calcium ions. Calcium ions are needed to enter the axon terminal, and then they cause these synaptic vesicles to move down and then be released into the synaptic cleft. So this is the incorrect statement. And let's look at the fourth one, which is the exposure of active sites on the actin filaments by calcium ions is responsible for the binding of actin-myosin filaments. This is true because, again, once this depolarization starts, this moves along and goes to the T tubules. And these T tubules, so if this is a T tubule, these T tubules are very close to the terminal cisternae. These terminal cisternae release calcium ions, and these calcium ions bind to the actin filaments and expose the active sites. And only when the active sites are exposed will actin and myosin be capable of binding to each other. So therefore, this is also a true statement, and this is the incorrect statement for this question. Let's look at the second question, which is asking who is most likely to have an excess of fast glycolytic fibers. A marathon runner this is an endurance activity where this person runs for a long period of time. So therefore, this person needs a constant supply of ATP, which is provided by aerobic activity. And aerobic activity is seen in slow oxidative fibers. So therefore, this person will not have fast glycolytic fibers. A weightlifter. A weightlifter depends on short bursts of activity. And short bursts of activity need ATP to be produced instantly. And that is done by these fast glycolytic fibers. So a weightlifter is the one who will have fast glycolytic fibers. Let's look at the other two. A long distance cyclist, again, the activity continues for a long time because this is long distance. So again, they need constant supply of ATP, which is provided by aerobic activity, which again would be slow oxidative fibers. And the same goes for a person who swims 25 laps of an Olympic-sized pool daily. 25 laps is a long time. So again, the activity is not short bursts as up here, but for a long period, which needs a constant supply of ATP. So again, depends on aerobic mechanisms, which is short oxidative fibers. So therefore, the answer to this question is a weightlifter. And let's go to the third question, which asks you to identify the true statement. So here it says that the axon terminal and the motor end plate are in intimate contact with each other, and this is false because there is no cell-to-cell continuity between the axon terminal and the motor end plate. So this is the axon terminal, this is the motor end plate. There is a space between them. There is no intimate contact. There is no, because this space which is present is the synaptic cleft. So this is therefore a false statement. The second one, which says the function of myoglobin is to bind calcium, is again false because the function of myoglobin is to bind oxygen, which is why you see myoglobin in the slow oxidative fibers. They have an excess of myoglobin. So this is to bind oxygen. The third one, which says muscles when relaxed do not have a resting tone. This is again false. All muscles have a resting tone. They have a tone whether they are active or they are relaxed. Only when muscles lose their nerve supply, then they are without a tone and they are known as flaccid. So muscles in a relaxed state still have a resting tone. So this is again false. And let's look at the last one, which says hypertrophy causes an increase in the number of mitochondria. This is a true statement because in hypertrophy, not only do you have increase in the size of individual muscle fibers, so the size of individual muscle fibers increases due to the increase in sarcoplasm. You also have increase in mitochondria, you have increase in connective tissue and blood vessels. So all of this occurs in hypertrophy. So therefore, this is the true statement to this question.